the handshake that changed everything. He had covered the Middle East for 37 years. Ahmed al-Rashid had witnessed the fall of Baghdad, the Arab Spring, the Syrian Civil War, and countless failed peace negotiations. As Reuters' senior Middle East correspondent, he thought he had seen every possible configuration of regional power. But nothing prepared him for what he witnessed on that September morning in 2020 in the Rose Garden of the White House. Standing before him were the foreign ministers of the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, flanked by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, signing normalization agreements that officially ended decades of hostility. But what struck al-Rashid most was not the ceremony itself, it was the body language. These were not reluctant handshakes forced by American pressure. These were the confident gestures of partners who had been doing business together for years. As the cameras clicked and diplomats applauded, al-Rashid realized he was witnessing the public acknowledgement of a transformation that had been hidden in plain sight for over a decade. The Abraham Accords were not the beginning of Israeli-Arab cooperation. They were the end of pretending it didn't already exist. The comfortable fiction. The old Middle East operated on comfortable fictions. The most comfortable fiction of all was that the Arab-Israeli conflict was the region's central organizing principle. Western diplomats, Arab leaders, and even Israeli politicians had spent decades treating this fiction as fact. The logic was seductive in its simplicity. Solve the Palestinian issue, and peace would spread across the region like dominoes falling in reverse. This fiction served everyone's purposes. It gave Arab leaders a convenient excuse for their domestic failures. Blame Israel. It gave Western diplomats a single framework for understanding the region. It gave Palestinian leaders guaranteed relevance. And it gave Israeli hawks the perfect justification for never taking risks for peace. But fictions eventually collide with reality. And the reality was that while diplomats fixated on the Palestinian question, a different Middle East was emerging in the shadows, one where Israel's enemies were becoming its most valuable partners, the enemy's enemy. The transformation began with a simple recognition. Iran, not Israel, had become the Middle East's most destabilizing force. While the world's attention remained focused on Israeli settlements, Iran was systematically building a Shia crescent of influence, stretching from Tehran through Baghdad and Damascus to Beirut. Quietly, without fanfare, Arab leaders began asking themselves an uncomfortable question. What if we had identified the wrong enemy? The first cracks appeared not in diplomatic cables, but in the mundane world of business and intelligence cooperation. As early as 2009, Israeli and Gulf officials began meeting in third countries. The conversations that took place in sterile hotel conference rooms would reshape regional geopolitics. The Gulf states had a problem. Iran's nuclear program and regional ambitions threatened their survival more directly than anything Israel had ever done. Israel had the solution: intelligence capabilities that could penetrate Iranian operations, cyber technologies that could disrupt Iranian nuclear programs, and military expertise that could counter Iranian tactics. The secret cooperation began with intelligence sharing. Israeli satellites tracked Iranian weapon shipments to Hezbollah. Israeli signals intelligence intercepted Revolutionary Guard communications. Israeli cyber capabilities disrupted Iranian nuclear centrifuges through Stuxnet, and all of this information was quietly shared with Arab intelligence services. By 2010, some Israeli defense officials joked privately that Israel had better military coordination with Arab states than it did with some European allies. The joke was not far from the truth, the business of peace. While generals were sharing intelligence, something equally revolutionary was happening in business. Arab investors began quietly buying stakes in Israeli technology companies through shell companies and offshore entities. Israeli entrepreneurs started setting up operations in Dubai using business visas obtained through third countries. The business relationships revealed a truth that political rhetoric had obscured. Israel and the Arab Gulf states were natural economic partners. Israel had exactly what the Gulf states needed: advanced technology, entrepreneurial culture, innovation capabilities. The Gulf states had exactly what Israel needed: capital, market access, logistics networks. By 2010, bilateral trade between Israel and Arab Gulf states was estimated at over $7 billion annually, despite the absence of formal diplomatic relations. Israeli agricultural technology was helping Saudi Arabia grow food in the desert. Israeli cybersecurity firms were protecting Arab financial institutions from Iranian hackers. The economic integration was so deep that when the Abraham Accords were finally signed, many business relationships simply moved from shadows into the open. The generational shift. The most profound change was generational. The old Middle East was shaped by leaders who came of age during Arab nationalism, when opposing Israel was a defining characteristic of Arab identity. The new generation, Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Zayed in the UAE, had different priorities. Born into wealth and educated in Western universities, they looked at Israel and saw not an ideological enemy, but a successful model for building a modern society in a hostile region. These leaders were pragmatists rather than ideologues. When they looked at regional challenges, water scarcity, economic diversification, Iranian expansion, they asked, who can help us solve these problems? The answer, increasingly, was Israel, the Palestinian sideshow. The transformation revealed the most uncomfortable truth. The Palestinian cause, which had supposedly been the heart of Arab politics for 70 years, had become a sideshow. This did not happen because Arab leaders stopped caring about Palestinians. It happened because they realized that making Palestinian statehood a prerequisite for regional cooperation was actually harming Palestinian interests. The Abraham Accords model turned this logic on its head. By normalizing relations while maintaining support for Palestinian rights, Arab states demonstrated that engagement, not isolation, was the path to influence. Within months of normalization, UAE pressure helped prevent Israeli annexation of parts of the West Bank, the Iranian calculation. Iran watched these developments with growing alarm. The Islamic Republic's strategy had been built on the assumption that Arab-Israeli hostility would prevent any effective regional coalition against Iranian expansion. The Abraham Accords shattered this strategy. Instead of facing Israel plus uncertain Arab support, Iran now confronted a potential alliance of Israel plus the wealthiest Arab states. Iran's response was predictable. Escalate tensions, break apart the emerging alliance. Iranian proxies increased rocket attacks. Iranian-backed militias intensified attacks on Saudi oil facilities. But the strategy backfired. Instead of driving Arab states away from Israel, Iranian escalation pushed them closer together. The new geography. The alliance created a new map of the Middle East, not physical geography, but strategic geography of power and influence. The old map was simple: Israel versus the Arab world. The new map was more complex but more stable: a loose alliance of Israel and moderate Arab states facing an Iranian-led axis. This alignment created strategic possibilities that had been unthinkable. Israeli Air Force planes could potentially use Arab airspace to reach Iran. Arab and Israeli intelligence services could share information to track Iranian activities. The alliance created economic possibilities that transformed development prospects. The technology revolution, perhaps the most significant aspect, was technological. The combination of Israeli innovation with Arab capital created a regional technology ecosystem that rivaled Silicon Valley in certain sectors. Israeli companies suddenly had access to Gulf wealth and Asian connections. Arab states could partner with Israeli firms that had decades of experience. Joint Israeli-Arab ventures launched AI companies, cybersecurity firms, and agricultural technology startups. The technology cooperation had strategic implications beyond economics. Joint cybersecurity development created shared infrastructure for defending against Iranian attacks. The mirror effect. The transformation held up a mirror to Western assumptions. For decades, Western policymakers had operated under key assumptions: that Arab-Israeli hostility was permanent, that the Palestinian issue was key to regional stability, that regional actors were incapable of managing their own affairs. Every assumption proved wrong. Arab-Israeli cooperation was not only possible, but natural when strategic interests aligned. The Palestinian issue was not the key to stability. Iranian expansionism was. Regional actors could manage complex transitions without extensive Western guidance. The uncomfortable truth. The uncomfortable truth was that old paradigms had been not just wrong, but counterproductive. The assumption that Arab-Israeli hostility was permanent had become a self-fulfilling prophecy. The focus on the Palestinian issue had diverted attention from more serious threats. Western experts had insisted that Arab-Israeli peace was impossible without resolving the Palestinian issue first. These experts had not simply been wrong. They had been obstacles to the peace they claimed to support. The future architecture. The new Middle East was not the end of transformation, but the beginning. Saudi Arabia remained the key prize. As keeper of Islam's holiest sites and the Arab world's largest economy, Saudi normalization would complete the regional transformation. Saudi officials made clear such normalization was possible, but would require Israeli concessions and domestic preparation. What became clear was that this transformation was not temporary tactical alignment, but a generational project. The young leaders who initiated normalization were likely to remain in power for decades. The business relationships created constituencies for continued cooperation. The strategic logic countering Iranian expansion remained compelling. The global implications. The transformation had implications beyond the region. The emergence of stable Israeli-Arab cooperation altered global energy markets, technology flows, and strategic calculations. The success demonstrated that American allies could create new forms of cooperation without extensive American leadership. The final transformation. The ultimate significance was not just what it revealed about regional politics, but what it demonstrated about transformation itself. For decades, the Middle East had been described as trapped by ancient hatreds and religious fundamentalism. The Abraham Accords demonstrated that even seemingly permanent conflicts could be transformed when circumstances changed and leaders were willing to take risks. The Muslim walls had not just fallen, they had been transformed into bridges. The question was whether other walls around the world might be capable of similar transformation, if only someone had the vision to imagine it and the courage to make it real.